Whenever you're ready, Councilor Carlin, whenever you're ready. Whenever you're ready.
I think they should have a title.
We're gonna name a street after that.
Maybe 20. How about
That works. This time I'd like to call the Common Council City of Plattsburgh Public Safety Committee to order. It is August 21st. It is 5:07 p.m. I'd like to take an attendance. Note that all counselors of this committee are present, except for Councilor Bob, who has been excused. First item on the agenda, approval of the minutes of the July 17th, 2023 committee meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry, let me take a motion. Yep, second. There we go. You know,
This is gonna be a no option.
any changes, deletions, or updates? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? That carries. 2.1, building inspector monthly violations report. This is provided on our Google Drive and available to the public. As a reminder to committee as well as those folks listening, this is a monthly violations report as an update in conjunction as well with the complaints report, which is a proactive report as well as a citizen driven report. Both are tracked and reported monthly. Any questions about those violations or reports? Those two, that's 3.1 and 2.2. 2.3, if there are no questions, I'll keep going. 2.3 is a year-to-date permit application and revenues for that department. Again, that's available to public as well as this committee. And if there are no questions, let's move on to 2.4, the draft or the discussion for property enforcement. This is, and we'll, Councilor Bond reached out today and asked him to confirm that this would include discussions on Airbnbs, which it does. I drafted a very rough draft of some housing concerns and tools that we have been discussing with Joe's office as an options. Include short-term rental management, expanding the rental registry, vacant properties and how to manage vacant properties, as well as the pending zoning code rewrite. Most everybody in New York State is faced with, most everybody, I'd say, most everybody, most every municipality in New York City is faced with some type of housing concern or housing crisis, if you will. There are tools available that the city has not fully leveraged. Those are short-term rental management policies, programs, permits, some type of registry for short-term management, expanding our current rental registry. If you do recall that rental registry was in conversation and process in 2019 and didn't wrap up until about 2021. I know that we wrapped it up when I first came on to get the final structure of that rental registry in place with the pricing and the charges and how to enforce it. You'll see in this memo that based on our understanding of the rental registry compared to other municipalities, we really only cover half of those rental properties. We cover 3 units and above. We don't cover single units and duplexes. Where traditionally most municipalities would also include those in their rental registry. That's also an opportunity for us to expand that program for the sole purpose to secure quality housing, quality rental housing. Something that we often hear that we don't have, something we often hear we have concerns over the quality of our rental stock. And so expanding that rental registry would help address that. Vacant properties, there's an opportunity that we can leverage to do a vacant property permit. A lot of these properties are derelict, falling down down zombie properties. But uniquely, these properties their taxes are being paid. So they're not in foreclosure, many of them are not in foreclosure process, and it's very rare that we do run into a vacant property that has not been paying their property taxes. But they still remain vacant. So what's the chance here? Property permit, a vacant property permit, permits for properties that are not being developed, they're not being leveraged back into the housing stock. Even more aggressively, a declaration of abandonment under real property law 19A, the municipality can declare a property abandoned. And there's a legal process for essentially the city taking abandoned properties. A lot more aggressive than most municipalities do, but it's also an option for the city of Plattsburgh to take that property and leverage it for development. Again, a little more aggressive, but still there. And then finally, the zoning code rewrite, which is currently in process. I know Councilor Vaughn, you're a part of that, you're a part of those meetings. That is a long-term position for the city of Plattsburgh. Everybody who has been a part of this process understands that. Our zoning codes are very old. They do not support the type of development that we really need in the city. More dense development in terms of the kind of development that we do allow in infill development, as well as changes that can be made to existing properties that are underutilized or underdeveloped properties. So the zoning code rewrite takes a year, and even when it's done, you still have a lead time to find developers, to find properties that can be developed, and then get that process started. So, you know, the lead time of adding new housing under this mechanism is years of adding, where the other mechanisms are a little bit more securing our current housing stock, identifying available properties that can be developed, and forcing those for development. And then the final one is more of a long-term approach to housing development. So. This is a rough draft, rough. One thing that we can and should be doing at started that process to actually understand specific to short-term rentals is what are we actually talking about?
Airbnbs are considered our rentals, aren't
They're considered short-term rentals. That is what technically they are considered. That's technically what they fall under as a property, or leveraging that property for weekend rentals or week-long rentals or 2-week rentals. You know, you're not looking at a month-long or a year-long rental with a short-term rental like that. They're in terms of those properties, short-term rentals, hotel rentals, stays like that. There is an occupancy tax associated to those rentals. That occupancy tax is collected by the county, for the county, and there's local law of the county that determines what is used or how that occupancy tax is used. The city of Plattsburgh, under general home rule, we do have the opportunity to leverage our own occupancy tax for short-term rentals, which includes Airbnbs, VRBOs, hotel stays, which again, we don't collect. Currently, we don't collect occupancy tax that stays within the city of Plattsburgh. Any short-term rentals or hotel stays in the city of Plattsburgh, and there are a couple, that goes to the county. County manages that and stays with that. And my request to the county just as recently was to just understand what that actually is. How much of that occupancy tax is generated within the city of Plattsburgh? How many units are we actually talking about? If they can figure that out for us, help us figure that out, so that we can make a reasonable decision on which way to go, what direction to go.
Okay, how about, I don't know if I can do this. Making a request, I know Joe's not here.
Jim is here to represent the building inspector's office.
To put a request out there to make a local law. To be stating that all Airbnbs be illegal within the city limits.
It's not impossible.
I know it can be done, because
Not
I'm
possible.
finding research, but yeah.
Yeah, sure, not possible. And again, when we look at what all of our tools are, That certainly can be a direction that we go. Could completely ban short-term rentals within the city of Plattsburgh, but is that the most reasonable thing to do? In my mind, I don't like to take the extreme option, the nuclear option of just saying, you're all done.
I'll do it, I'll take it.
I understand that, but there's,
You will do it.
totally understand, I understand your positions on it, but there's opportunity that we can leverage with that. That could be a better benefit to the city, rather than just saying, all is done, get out, we don't want to. There could be a better opportunity to address citizens' concerns, of what their concerns are, as well as have it be a benefit for us.
You know, the problem I see with doing sort of a hybrid system is that it would really tax our police department, I think, to monitor these problems, make sure that they're not having wild parties and that kind of thing. I mean, the stories we've been told from residents is that if there's an Airbnb in the neighborhood, it causes a lot of problems. They cause parking problems, they cause noise problems, and that would require police departments to work maybe harder than they should to monitor that. So, you know, the money that we're getting from it may be offset by increased costs to enforce good behavior for those people. So, you know, I just think, you know, we're talking about 50% of our rental market is not on the rental registry yet, but we'd like for it to be there. I don't think that adding short-term rentals is going to help that at all. It's going to make it worse. It's going to exacerbate the work that has to be done by the building inspector. So I just don't see an upside to this, especially when our vacancy rate is so low to take homes out of the mix that could otherwise be used for full-time residents is a real problem. So,
I mean, B&Bs, I'm not suggesting B&Bs be done away with. B&Bs are nice, I've stayed there. They're nice, you know. But an Airbnb and a B&B, totally different. And an Airbnb, right?
Understood, and yeah, totally understand, and I don't know anecdotally what the reality is in neighborhoods. I understand that there's some parking concerns, and especially when you have, 10 people staying in a residential place that can support 10 beds, but it's a neighborhood and it's on the cul-de-sac. Yeah, there's 10 different cars that are just kind of like buying the streets, sure. But again, if there's a mechanism that the city can employ to prevent that specific issue from happening, we already have codes on the books for noise and parties and ordinances like these, right? So that's not something that we already have to make. That's already built in, and it's just a matter of reporting and enforcing. If parties are happening and our police officers are there, or code enforcement's there, they can put a stop to it. So it's kind of already there. The parking thing, yep, totally understand. Totally understand the parking thing. Now, if there's a question on what are we talking about? Are we talking about one Airbnb, or are we talking about 1,000? Right? Is that also should go into some of the thinking that we do, in my mind, some of the thinking that we do in terms of what solution we then provide.
And we don't know how many are in the city. limits.
Correct. Even if you look on Airbnb, like I did today, look on Airbnb, I found maybe like
I already did that.
10, right? I didn't see like 1,000.
So they're
So,
listing them as something else.
sorry,
So they're listing them as something else, because it's just Airbnb.
I understand it, but I'm looking at the Airbnb is a very specific site that you can list your house on as a short-term rental. And if, that's what I'm doing. And there's other short-term rental sites as well. So it's not just Airbnb in that sense, but it could be like vacation rentals, website, it could be Craigslist for all I know, right? So there are a couple that there's some research. I think that there's just some research to be done before we make a final, like, this is the decision, we're banning all of it. Let's just take a look at some more data and then look if it's the council's the council comes back and says, we're getting rid of short-term rentals all over the place. I don't know what impact that's going to have, so again, we probably want to make an informed decision on that.
Understandable.
There are already some short-term rentals in the city.
Yes, yeah, and some hotel, the beds, motels, things like that, which would also include, that would also fall under that umbrella of. Maybe not short-term rentals, but they are more like hotels. Those do collect bed tax, those do collect occupancy tax.
Yeah. Thank you for that, maybe.
No, the discussion is important, obviously, I'd hate to see it run away, I hate to see it run away from us though, right? I hate to see us just say, let's just ban all of it. I think we've been pretty moderate in terms of how heavy of a hand we use, in city government. Please take a look at the memo. Obviously, there's more data to collect, and we'll continue to collect that. And bring some more data back and more information back to make a decision. Yes. Yes.
Yes, fair.
3.1 through 3.3 reports, police department reports. We're seeing the reports provided. Do you have any questions? Captain Mitchell here is coming to answer those. There's a discussion item here for crosswalks. The speed limit changed. The question on what to do with that, this is one example of the intersection of Weed Street, Miller Street, Margaret Street. That's one example of problematic. It's right here in New York. Yeah, right where Nikki's is, that's one example of a problematic intersection. Many people can also point to the GP intersection, Cumberland Ave, pointing to Margaret, right? That's also kind of problematic, as you all are aware, the Cornelia Street, Broad Street intersection and Cornelia Street corridor, that's being redesigned for pedestrian safety. That final design is being done in conjunction with New York State. It's not our program, it's not our project, it's New York State's project, so they're going to make their own design decisions. But we do have a number of intersections like that that can use some attention. So
They were working pretty hard on that earlier in the summer, and lately I haven't seen any.
yeah, the initial work done at that intersection was primarily for surveying and figuring out where everybody's lines were. Survey work, and then there was also traffic work that was done, some traffic study and traffic counts that were done. Based on that information, they take back and put that into their design considerations. Those design considerations then need to be approved by DOT. And then once that's done, then they approve the design, hire the construction company and bid it out, and then start the construction. Yeah, as far as I know right now, it's just surface. There's no full depth. That would be the city's responsibility for full depth of construction. I don't believe that there's a need for anything underneath the street. I think it's just hard surface at this point.
Yes, they, at the corner of Cornelia and Beaton, they were working hard on the sidewalks, and but I think maybe they made ADA plan.
That's a separate project.
It is.
That was the PSAP grant, pedestrian safety action plan grant, that they are doing there. So that, I think it's, we've been in Cornelia and North Catherine. I think those two intersections are being revamped for pedestrian safety.
Okay, so what you just described earlier is not PSAP, right? So the state is doing that to rebuild that.
Correct.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great news.
Yeah, and obviously pedestrian safety is critical. I've said it before, everybody's seen it, everybody said it before. Lack of sidewalks in that district, lack of biking, safe infrastructure, improving safe infrastructure. Because we all see in the wintertime, people are walking up and down the street, in the street, because the snow banks are so high, the sidewalks are where they can walk. like parking lots and parking spaces. It needs some attention, it desperately needs attention. 25 mph speed limit is something that we have talked about. Certainly my office supports it. It would just be, I think, an action by the council to approve something like this. And then it obviously comes with a cost. There's 30 mph signs littered throughout the city. Those would have to be changed, obviously. So it does come with a cost.
I'm just not sold on it working and doing anything. It's hard because, I mean, people there's 30 mph and speeding is out of control in the city right now. I didn't think it was, then recently, it was an accident like a half hour ago about something, and. But you have 30 everywhere, but you're going 40, why is putting 25 mph signs out gonna make you go 25? Just not.
I'd like to say something
We go with that.
that might encourage you, and that is that I talked with Michael Bissett at DPW head, and he said that the new both flashing signs as you drive into the city are having a real impact. And you can see people slowing down, you know, to make sure that it reads 30 miles an hour as they go by. And that's just that's a psychological thing, I guess, but it seems to work.
That could be, but so
So
speed bumps could be too.
if you put the speed bumps, yes, absolutely.
Instead of spending all that, I don't know, speed bumps and.
If you lower those flashing signs to 25, I think people will respond the same way. And another piece of good news regarding speeding is that those signs collect data. And Mr. Bissett was saying that the data is now turned over to the police department, or will be soon. And they can actually use that to analyze where to go and find speeders. So I think that's a
Certain
great
times of
thing.
the day. Certain times when the speed is higher, we can get enforcement at those times.
Now, to my understanding, you can't use that data to ticket people.
No,
You have to actually catch them in the end. But it does help us analyze.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, let's see, I have 2 items on the agenda for consideration. 3.5 draft resolution authorizing contract for youth safety advocate, Plattsburgh City School District, motion. Councilor Bond, second. Councilor Kelly, discussion. This is an expansion of their current program. They do pay for this youth safety advocate, as they do every year. I know that there is some controversy on the agenda for this. That's not lost on me. So it will be up to the full council or the council to make a determination. Yes.
Yeah, because I remember this at one of the meetings I came to, but I would love the update now, the council meeting, I would love the discussion. That would help me out.
There are Councilor Bob's not here, so if I vote no on this, it won't go to the full council. Is that correct?
I believe that's accurate.
Then I don't want to be the person who does that.
Sure. I know where you stand on this issue,
Yeah.
and I will say that that's a respectable position. And even if you say yes in committee, I do not hold that to you saying, being obligated to say yes anywhere else. And I know why, if you said yes here, I know exactly why you would do it.
I voted no on this every time it's come up.
Understood.
And I will do so again, but not in this committee,
Understood.
so that it can go to the full council.
I appreciate that.
Fair enough. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries to be considered, at the, regular. 3.6 draft resolution authorizing travel request police department motion. Councilor Kelly, second by Councilor Bond, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. 4.1, report monthly payroll, and 4.2, report monthly EMS and fire calls. Then standard reports provided every month, available to the public for review. Any questions about those reports? No. Is there any new business that come before this committee?
I have something.
Yes, please.
And still learning the ropes. But I know there's about to be gaps in the police and the fire department leadership. So I think something should be added to the agenda for the next council meeting. It would be very beneficial for all the counselors to be present to discuss things openly, because I'm new, and when gaps like this happen, we know things are done. So is there any way we could? For this to be?
So mayoral appointments are presented, they are not discussed, and they come out of the mayor's office for consideration.
We don't have any impact on them at all.
Not the count, not the legislative body. The legislative body approves or denies mayoral appointments. They don't discuss it because it's a legislative action, not an executive action.
If there were a personnel issue with a specific employee, you would discuss that in executive session, but not on the council floor.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm still learning, but I thought for sure that we discussed things, but, and I know I'm obviously hearing stuff. And I knew you were opening this coming up, so.
Yeah, there's
Just always open.
there's always openings and there's always changes in terms of succession. In terms of mayoral appointments, it comes to the floor. It's voted on and it's approved or denied.
That's simple.
Hopefully,
Yeah.
well, I mean, like, just frankly, the whole goal is that the legislative body understand that the city is run by experts. I, as the mayor, I'm not gonna put somebody up that I would feel could not run the city or run that department perfectly, right? And oftentimes the people who are asked to lead either fill that gap because they have that expertise. And if that expertise does not exist in that department, as everybody in this world has seen, I have no problem going outside of the department to find expertise.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, if you were to do that, as you've done in the past, would you share information with the council on the ongoing search?
100%, like I did, with the former chief search, that was. I handed it off to a separate committee to help make that decision. And felt that process went well, maybe some of the council didn't, but I involved council members and people were updated and everybody knew what was happening and pretty transparent process, so.
This is the first time for me, so I just,
No, I understand.
I was here for a few of the meetings when things went down, but, I just, let's move on.
I can give you some insight into why I would make a recommendation of somebody, and it is primarily based on service. How many years of service, how many years of experience they have.
Test scores,
Could be. It doesn't have to be a civil service process as well. So I'm also bound by that process. And the constraints of that process. And I've made my opinion about civil service quite clear.
yeah,
I do not like it.
and I'm into it as well, so,
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other new business to come before this committee? Comments? Okay.
Mayor, actually, the resident next block, we sent an email to Council Bond asking her to put her comments in the record, so I'll have Council Bond email them to me. And I will put those in.
Okay, those will be added to the record. Okay. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Councilor Bond, taken by Councilor Kelly, all in favor? Aye. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.